It's been 3 weeks and I'm still in California. I got a spell from the other school. Now I'm waiting until the new school texts me so I can go there pretty much. Guess let's watch a YouTube video. Why not? Here we are.
Stories are a staple of being human. There's no way you go through your life without hearing at least one of these. They serve many purposes: cautionary tales, windows into the worlds that we're glad to not be a part of, and best of all, to scare the crap out of people for fun. And what organization is...
Let's pause it and let's head somewhere, I guess. May as well. I can't believe I'm in California. I always want to go here. Now I can. I was living in New York, but I went back to Australia, and then moved to California again. Moved to America again. Oh, hell yeah. California. Yeah, buddy, I can't believe it. California. Hell yeah. Cannot believe it, dude. California. Where GTA 5 is based in. Hell yeah. Can't believe it, I'm in California. Weed is legal here, so I could smoke weed wherever the fuck I want.
Done more scaring the crap out of people for fun than the SCP Foundation. There's plenty of terrifying tales woven throughout the many canons, so why not take a look at a few particularly scary ones? This is the top 5 SCP horror stories. Coming in at number 5, we've got SCP-5000. The entity itself isn't all that scary, but it has many stories to tell. So very many. See, SCP-5000 is a non-functional mechanical suit known as an absolute exclusion harness. It was designed by the SCP Foundation, but not this SCP Foundation. Somehow it made its way into our dimension, or whatever the dimension the folks writing the entry originated in, containing the corpse of Pietro Wilson. Pietro is a Foundation employee, and also very much so alive in the case of the Foundation.
It makes sense that there are so many different SCPs directly linked to death. One extra secret SCP details the discovery that after dying, we still retain some semblance of consciousness, forced to feel our bodies decompose in the darkness long after we're buried. Another one looks at how the linear, progressive passage of time is actually an anomaly and has caused billions of deaths. No stopping that. But what if death didn't happen? Or rather, couldn't? Welcome to the End of Death Hub. This is a whole separate canon within the SCP Wiki. Plenty of contributors have added to this particular horror story, one in which the entire observable world ceases to experience the effects of death. Immortality is forced upon all life without any other biological change. At first, this doesn't sound so bad, right? Death is scary. We don't want our loved ones to die. We don't want to die ourselves. The other side of that river Styx is unknown and therefore horrifying. So eternal life would be pretty sweet, no? Well, actually, it would be a total nightmare. Death is essential for life to continue. It's natural. It's needed. Without death, many things would be unable to change, unable to grow, and more. Overpopulation quickly becomes a major issue in this sprawling story as organizations and individuals alike seek out ways to keep the growth of everything under control. Also keep in mind that free from death does not mean free from pain and suffering. If you run out of food or experience major bodily trauma, you won't die and just be free from that suffering. Instead, you'll feel it more intensely than previously thought possible, and for longer too. That starvation feeling will never disappear. Those fatal injuries will plague you. Not fun. So if you really want a truly scary SCP story, check out the End of Death Hub, pick through a few entries, and see how awful life without death could truly be. Coming in at number 3, we've got SCP-4000. Listen carefully to this story, because if you mess any of the rules up, you could find yourself in a world of hurt. SCP-4000 is a very strange case. It's a forested land only accessible through weird ritual. Those who do complete the tasks required to travel here show up in a well and must walk down a path until they loop back to the start. During these walks, they will encounter all sorts of anomalous creatures. The creatures that live here come in all shapes and sizes and often undergo horrible mutations. Unfortunately, they're not huge fans of being mutated and can get pretty upset about it. Here's where the rules start to kick in. Do not call anything by a consistent name. Don't answer to a consistent name. Accept any gifts presented to you, but don't use or consume them. And if a ghost tells you that it's not a creature, listen to what it says. Follow these to a T and you might just make it out unscathed. But if you goof up and call something a consistent name, you might end up experiencing some really strange stuff. Creatures from SCP-4000 could appear to you in the real world as terrible hallucinations, or maybe not as hallucinations. Yikes. See, names are powerful things. They anchor a person or thing to their identity. But if we're to believe the stories of SCP-4000, the inhabitants of this world are Fae, banished here without any names or titles. If you give one of these things your name, they might just take it, and from there it can only go downhill. You could find yourself mutating, shifting, or changing without knowledge of why, just like a certain scholar, but we won't talk too much about him here. Coming in number 2, we've got SCP-1782. At first, this anomaly appears to be an abandoned apartment IKEA that is constantly changing. You might find that the chains are weakening. This means you're closer to the whole story, but also much closer to danger. Do you dare read the whole thing, or will you just take my word that it's scary and your life without that? Some chilling stories for these chilly nights. What could be better, right? Well, the way some of these tales end, I'm sure you'd rather they didn't exist in the first place. But hey, what'd you think of the list? Any of these really interest you? What's the scariest SCP horror story you know? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's take a look at some of your more creased ones from the top 5 scariest horror movies nobody talks about, part 4. Fletcher Sketch says, FYI, Fingers and Lewis are on.
We all know that messing around with a demon is a fool's game. We've all heard tales of people whose curiosity has gotten the better of them, and they've stared too long into the abyss, and inevitably, the abyss has stared back. Now, I've got to go ahead and say this. Don't try this at home, ever. Just in case you were curious,
And the devil's
we
son.
compiled a list of 5 scary demons that you should never, ever summon. You've been warned.
I'm the devil's son, they wouldn't fuck with me, otherwise my father will fire him and banish them.
What's going on, guys? It's me, Jack Finch, your host, right here on Top 5 Scary Videos. Today, we're going to be delving into
My
the
dad will
depths of
banish them
demonology and take a look at the
if
most
they
sinister,
try anything
the
to
most
me.
devious of demons that you should keep far, far away from. Jumping in at number 5, we have Belial. Belial, whose name in Hebrew literally translates to worthless or yokeless, was canonized as the leader of the Sons of Darkness in the Dead Sea Scrolls. If you didn't know, the Dead Sea Scrolls are an ancient Jewish text.
And yes,
discovered
I
in
have my own server
1977,
now.
which are believed to have been written before 400
Minecraft
BC
server.
and refer to a wide host of demonic beings.
So,
Seriously, it's
yeah,
spooky how much they
I
name
might
it.
go on
In
it
these scrolls,
soon.
Belial is described as both the king of evil and the prince of darkness, which has led many to believe that Belial is a pseudonym of the devil himself. Belial is also known as the Lord of Lies.
And yeah, it's on beta still.
Many texts refer to Belial as a devious figure who utilizes fornication, wealth, and pollution of the sanctuary to get exactly what he wants. However, in the Satanic Bible, Belial's name is suggested to translate as without a master and symbolizes independence, self-sufficiency, and personal accomplishment. It begs the question, whose side is Belial really on? Coming up at number 4, we have Surgat. In Latin, Surgat literally translates to rise, and is the physical manifestation of rebellion and opposition. His angelic opposite is Acquion. To be honest, Surgat is a minor demon, and is pretty weak sauce compared to some of the guys on this list. But the thing that makes him pretty terrifying is his brush with a particular. Between 1150 and 1227, the Grimoire of Honorius, station of rebellion and opposition. His angelic opposite is Acquion. To be honest, Surgat is a minor demon, and is pretty weak sauce compared to some of the guys on this list. But the thing...
Let's pause it and let's head home, I guess, and go on to Xbox and play on my server and build because it's still on beta, pretty much. So yeah, let's head to my crib, head inside, go onto my server, and yeah, you know. Yo. Hey babe, it's me, Jade. Guess what? What? I'm in California. Okay. Yep, my parents moved here. I convinced my parents. Okay, cool. So, where do you live, babe? I live... I'll text you the address, okay? Okay. See ya. See ya, babe. See ya. Love you. Love you too, Jade. Let's head in. Head upstairs. Money. Sword, knife, baseball bat, no. Glock. VR, definitely. Okay, let's connect this to the boot. Let's turn on the Xbox, go into Minecraft, go into my server, connect the VR. Here we go.
And found
Here we
lingering
are.
on both sides of a wall. In 1612, a nun from Aix-en-Provence was possessed by Barith. During the exorcism, Barith gave up his own name, as well as the names of all the other demons possessing her, but also the names of the
And
saints
yes,
who would
this
be most
was
effective
on my
at
SCP
that
Foundation
diagnosis.
series.
Bringing it up at the rear
I
at number
created it
2, we
basically,
have
of course.
Pazuzu. Dating back to ancient Mesopotamia, Pazuzu is the king of the demons of the wind. He is the bearer of storms.
It's on my
and the
YouTube
bringer of
channel.
drought, and is often depicted
See
with
it.
the body of a man, the head of a dog, and the talons of an eagle. In the possession case of Roland Doe, the story that inspired The Exorcist, Pazuzu is the chief demon that possesses the boy. He is known to be an incredibly intelligent demon, and is renowned for scheming and corrupting the pure of heart. He takes most pleasure, though, from corrupting the purest of the pure, and is often depicted trying to possess children for sport. It is also thought that Pazuzu predates most other demons, and is thought to be an Oberith, an ancient evil that manifested itself from the abyss and has been tied to Earth for millions of years. Strangely though, Pazuzu finds reference in a huge number of ancient societies, from Mesopotamia to Sumeria to ancient Babylon. In some, he is revered as a saviour and protector, others a demon who should never be summoned. Followers of the Oberith often carve wooden statues of the demon and worship him in the hope that Pazuzu will one day reveal his true name to them. No thanks. And coming in at the top spot, number 1, we have Azazel. Azazel, or Satan, or Lucifer, or the devil, or Baphomet. You know this guy. He's the king of all demonic possession, and he loves nothing more than a group of teenagers standing around a pentagram and beckoning him forward into the mortal ground. The Horn Prince is heavily
My
related
dad,
to the image of
the
goat,
devil.
and we often see him depicted with hooves, horns, and a tail. But this actually has some substance to it. In Abrahamic society, a priest would whisper the prayers of a village into the ears of a goat, and then sacrifice it in the hopes that their prayers would be answered. But in fear of Azazel corrupting the goat, they select an extra goat, often referred to as a scapegoat, and use it as a decoy. They then send it out into the desert, hoping they wasted a little bit of time for the devil. Now, we all know that's probably not the case. He's a tricky one. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, Azazel is referred to in the Book of Giants, and connects him with the story of the fallen angels. In this, he teaches men the art of war, and also teaches women the art of witchcraft and painting the body. Generally, Azazel pops up in pretty much every possession story ever, and it's probably wiser just to avoid him altogether. Speak of the devil, and the devil shall appear. Hello horror fans, and welcome back to the Scariest channel on YouTube. As per usual, I'll be your spirit guide Jack Finch as we peer back over to the Goethi Grave.
You can't say we didn't warn you. Roll the clip.
Stars. Hail. Deathless one.
Now, again, as with the first part
video, slight disclaimer, demonology is not to be trifled with, and we're in no way encouraging you to go ahead and summon some demons, because that's never a good idea. Before we jump on into that, though, you know the drill by now. If you're a fan of this video, demonology, demon hunting, or just top 5 scary videos, then go ahead and hit that thumbs up button, as well as that subscribe bell, so you can stay up to date with that most.
Rather than the tennis. Get in the game this Aussie Open with a sports bet multi. We're serving up more markets, more offers, and bigger odds. Make it a multi this Aussie Open with sports bet.
Horrifying uploads. Kicking off at number 5, Andrus. A lot of you guys were pretty vocal about him making this list, so here he is, and I'm on board with your insistence because this guy is as vile as they come. In and killed mankind, aided by his henchman Flauros. As the demonic Grisha goes, the demonic Andrus was a grand marquis of hell that appeared with a winged angel's body and the head of an owl, or sometimes a raven. It rides upon a strong black wolf and wields a sharp flaming sword. His main responsibility is to sow discord amongst humanity, teaching those who he favours to kill their enemies, their masters, and their servants. It is thought that he was often summoned by military leaders who would use his abilities to incite wars that would last for decades, resulting in a new definition for people, the planet, and the political landscape. Interesting. Next up at number 4, Valak. And no, not the nun. Well, kind of the nun, but yeah, not the nun. This guy is starting to get some real traction in popular culture, which, well, is kind of worrying. In the Lesser Key of Solomon, Valak is listed as the 62nd demon of hell, but is often attributed as a grand president of the demonic depths, or the city of jewels in several Sumerian texts, who thusly relies on his guile and manipulation of others. He is known as the Marquis of Snake, often attributed with the power to locate, summon, and control any serpent at will. Valak is often attributed to having the power of finding treasures, or in other terms, the power of divination and demonic insight, which he often uses as a means to discern his victims' true desires and tempt them with it. In the Dictionnaire Infernal, written by Colin de Placey and first published in 1880, Valak is depicted as a small cherub-like child with wings riding atop a two-headed dragon, which is an accurate representation of how he used. Kind of rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? Whether you call it the Porneus or the Drekavac, this malicious demon from Slavic mythology is something that you should just totally avoid altogether. In Slavic folklore, these demons were believed to come into existence from stillborn fetuses, but also from improperly buried remains of children that died during infancy. If you've played The Witcher 3, then you'll know what we're getting at. Not dissimilar to the Myling of Scandinavian folklore, these creatures are considered to be extremely powerful demons due to the innate potential energy caught up in an unrealized life and their particularly tragic entry into our world. Still, there's hope because, as Slavic mythology tells us, if a botchling is buried beneath the threshold of a house, then instead it would turn into a klobok, a protective house spirit, and then everyone's a winner. Coming in at number 2, Zeminiar. Sometimes you have to save the best for a special occasion, which is why there is pretty much next to nothing known about the demon of the name Zeminiar, and that's for a good reason. Zeminiar is one of the 4 principal kings of hell as aligned in the Ars Goetia, the evidential playbook for the who's who in the demonic realm. As demonology scriptures explain, Zeminiar, alongside his 3 other kings, Amaimon, Corson, and Garp, were all supposedly constrained by King Solomon and outlined in his Lesser Key. It is thoroughly noted that Zeminiar should not be conjured under any circumstances, with the sole exception of an end-of-days occasion. Zeminiar is the king of the north, and with him he brings death and destruction, and alongside his kingly brothers, they are often considered to be an allegory of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which is never a good sign. And finally, at our number 1 spot of scary demons, you should never summon Abaddon, and boy, is this a big bad baddie. In the Hebrew Bible, the word Abaddon is a biblical term which literally translates to place of destruction, and literally speaking is a fiery plane in the realm of the dead known as Gehenna. However, in the later teaching of Revelation, Abaddon is often referred to as a being that had become one with the abyss and personified it as the angel of the abyss. In Greek, the equivalent for Abaddon is Apollyon, which literally translates to the destroyer, which is exactly what he is. In demonology, it is often cited that even a demon as powerful as Satan openly admitted that he wishes to avoid a confrontation with Abaddon. Yeah, he's pretty super serious. He's often depicted as a large human-sized locust, or in fewer cases an entire entire
compared
swarm
to
of locusts
me.
that carry highly infectious diseases. Abaddon is said to be
I
a
would
plague of locusts
destroy
called upon
him.
during the 10 plagues of Egypt
My
and
father's
responsible for
weak
causing many
even.
atrocities in biblical times. In all seriousness, Abaddon is a complete enigma. At times, he's often depicted as an angel of judgment, and both heaven and hell claim him as an ally, other times as an enemy. In most texts that speak of him, Abaddon is amongst the most feared of supernatural beings, having both angels, demons, and corporeal beings fearing his very name alone. So, yeah, don't summon him, guys. Well, unfortunately, folks, that's all we've got time for in today's video. Let us know if you've enjoyed this series and speak your mind in the comment box down below. Hello horror fans and welcome back to the Scariest channel on YouTube, Top 5 Scary Videos, your pint-sized compendium for all things demonology and darkness incarnate. A handy guide to the 7 circles of hell and the devious demons that lurk beneath. What's going on, guys? As always, I'll be your spirit guide, Jack Finch, as we take one big deep breath, chalk up the pentagram once more, fire up the candles and patiently wait for this
Let's
whole
have
thing
another
to blow over.
joint.
As we take a look at the top 5 scary demons you should never summon, part 3. The Ars Goetia or the Lesser Key of Solomon, we've managed to trawl through the many grimoires and evocations from ancient literature that outline the study of the alleged demonic entities that pockmark our humble little planet. Now, it goes without saying, but we've warned you in both part 1 and part 2 of this series, please don't try this at home. Also, we've got a little treat for you today. You may have noticed a new face on this channel popping up here and there, and it's my pleasure to formally introduce you to my fellow Brit and horror host, Lucy McPhee.
Hi. I've seen in the comments that you guys find me a little bit creepy. I think I'm creepier than Jack. I've appeared in his beard a few times. I don't know if you've seen that. In my first video, I was in your beard.
Oh my god, I don't know what that means, but I'm terrified.
You should look back.
Wow.
I was there.
Okay, good. Speaking already.
Yeah, here I am.
Lucy is going to be alongside us here on the channel, bringing you all the scary stuff. What you done? You've done Haunting a Hill House.
Haunting of Hill House, an upcoming one, Scariest Films on Netflix.
Woo.
That's going to be a good one. Most controversial horror films as well coming up soon.
She is controversial, so.
I am. I'm very controversial.
There we have it. You heard it here. And I'm sure you'll all join me in giving Lucy a warm welcome to the Scariest channel on YouTube. So, without further delay, let's get started, shall we?
Let's do it.
Kicking off at number 5, Chimaris. And boy, is this name synonymous with the demonic art of war, also known as Chimeris or Chimes, as the 66th demon laid out in the Ars Goetia, one of many 17th century texts that continues to be our source for all things demonology. It's interesting because according to Wade Baskin's Dictionary of Satanism, a controversial philosophy handbook written in 1972, Chimaris is a theoretical allusion to the Cimmerians, a warlike people mentioned throughout the classical period as living and dwelling in complete darkness. Chimaris is depicted as a godly warrior riding atop a black horse and possesses the ability of locating lost and hidden treasures. His primary demonic function is to mold men into warriors of his own likeness, bolstering his ranks into doing his bidding. In hell, Chimaris holds the rank of Marquis and is served by 20 legions. In Aleister Crowley's 777, Chimaris is attributed to the differing Hebrew spelling and is alluded to represent the Four of Discs, a manifestation of black light, which is also a form of the Egyptian god Horus and the alleged dawning of a new dark age.
Next up at number 4, Lamashtu. This is a pretty nasty. Soon see why. In ancient Mesopotamian mythology, Lamashtu is a terrifying female demon that preyed on children and women in childbirth. In Akkadian, she is Lamastu. In Sumerian, she is Dime. In few cases,